Alright, so this is my second take of recording this because my audio did not record the first time. Alright, so this is a little video about Escalation League. Since I've been getting a lot of questions about it at the shop, I wanted to make a little video about it, explaining what it is, what the format's going to look like. I've actually posted a video on our YouTube channel already about me and Jonathan doing kind of a mock-up Escalation League where we take our Tales of Aria pre-release packs and rebuilt them, and then sort of did like a mock-up Escalation League where we built a deck, kind of threw our decks together based on the packs we had opened. So, and we kind of knew who we were going to play from the start. Like I played Lexi and he played Oldham, but all right, let's get into the discussion. So, Flesh and Blood Escalation League. So what you're gonna do for Escalation League is it's gonna be a sealed series of tournaments where we're going to start with a six packs of a sealed set. So you can choose whatever set you want. So you can play Welcome to Wraith. You can choose to play Arcane Rising. You can choose to play Tales of Aria. You can choose to play Monarch. You can do whatever set you want, other than Crucible, for your starting six packs. So each event, you're going to choose 3 new packs to add to your card pool. And we're going to have like a collection registration sheet that's going to be required for everybody to fill out. So if you choose Welcome to Wraith, we're going to have welcome sheets out there. And what you do is you put the number of cards you pulled for each card. So you don't have to like type the card number and all that crap, out. You just have to put the number of cards that you pulled in that category. And each time you open your 3 packs, you're going to add to that list and your card pool, and then you'll have some deck building time before each tournament to make your upgrades to your deck. So, first event, 6-pack sealed, just like a normal sealed event. But the exception being, you can choose any set you want. And then the 3 packs you choose every event, those can be from any set you want as well. So if I chose Welcome for my first 6 packs, I could, not that I would probably do this, but I could choose my next 3 packs to come from Monarch. So maybe I wanted to get maybe I wanted to play Bolton, or maybe I wanted to play Dorinthia with some warrior stuff that was from that set. I could try pulling into the Monarch pool if I wanted to. So each event, you're going to start with a different number of packs, of course. So you're going to start event 1. We just need a 30-card deck. We're going to play Young Heroes, and you're going to use your 6 packs to make a 30-card deck minimum. You can go as high as you want, of course, but 30 is the minimum. Event 2, however, we're going to up the size of the deck because you're going to have more cards available. So you're going to choose 3 more packs. It's going to be a 40-card minimum deck, and we're still going to use the Young Heroes. So as the Young Heroes, there's certain heroes that are stronger, certain heroes that are weaker in that format, and you can take advantage of that. Event 3, however, we're going to open 3 more packs, and you're going to do a 50-card minimum with Adult Heroes. So that's when things are going to get really interesting, because we're going to be moving to more of a classic constructed sort of format. You're going to have a little bit more time to do more of a setup, more planning in your deck construction. Your heroes are going to get a little bit more honed and more focused. So, for example, in my Escalation League, you'll notice that my Lexi deck on the first upgrade, which we had a 30-card deck, we turned it into a 40-card deck first. You'll notice in that first game, my deck really wasn't super consistent. So it wasn't really up to par quite yet. But in game 2, where we went to the 50-card deck and we played the Adult Heroes, my Lexi deck was like firing on all cylinders, and I actually won that game. And you'll see like all the frost tokens were going off, and I was doing everything like almost like a classic constructed Lexi deck would do. And I had a few off turns where I had all lightning cards where I would do lightning things, but for the most part, I was almost like a fully built Lexi deck performance-wise. And then when you get to 60 cards, of course, that's going to be a little bit more focused, a little bit more, accurate of a classic constructed deck. So basically, we're taking our card pool and we're going from a sealed pool all the way up to a classic constructed card pool. A bunch of different questions that have been asked. A little FAQ section. Are any cards going to be banned? No, all cards will be legal. So if you want to play Chain and you want to play Seeds one last time, while Seeds is banned, you can go ahead and play Monarch, and you can try to build a Chain deck and play Seeds. If you want to play Welcome to Wraith and you want to play Drone of Brutality and you want to try to deck people out and play like a Fatigue style game, go Welcome to Wraith and go ahead and try to do that. That's totally acceptable. I want everybody to be able to play all those cards. I want you to be able to strategize and come up with your own ideas that are a little bit outside the box, even if they're not legal in normal formats. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of the bans while you can. Is there a max number of cards for a deck? No. If you pull it, you can play it. So if I pull 5 red Sink Belows, I can play all 5 of those red Sink Belows in my deck. If I pull, as a chain player, if I pull 6 red Seeds, I could play 6 red Seeds in my deck. So things can get a little nutty in the card counts for all these heroes. Next, do you have to play the same hero? No, you can switch your hero at any time. So maybe you play your first game of Sealed, just like you would in a regular Sealed tournament, and you're like, man, this hero is not working. This is not what I want to play. This is not what I'm liking. You can switch your deck between games as long as it doesn't, hinder the start time of your next game. So when you do your reveal hero step, you're going to let them know which hero you're playing, and then you can sideboard into that other hero if you'd like. So your entire card pool will always be available for you as your sideboard, so you'll always be able to swap into another hero. So if I know I'm fighting against somebody, let's just say I went into Arcane Rising, and I only have one no rune, no rune equipment to block Arcane Barrier. But I know I have a Viserai headpiece, and I could switch into Viserai and have an extra no rune because I have that headpiece. You could technically switch heroes between games if you see that your opponent is, you have to decide. You have to decide, before you reveal heroes. But if you know your opponent's running around playing Kano, you can switch to Viserai, so you have that extra little bit of no rune if that's how your card pool lined up. So you don't have to stay the same hero the entire time. Do I have to play a single set? No, you do not have to play a single set. You can pick from any set. Just be aware that if you stay within one set, though, your deck's going to be more consistent doing so. So you really don't want to diversify too much. Like if I were to diversify with my 3 packs, I would do 2 packs of the same set that I've already sealed from, and then I would do maybe 1 from another set. So, and you could do Crucible of War as a support set as well, if you want to just try to pull some cards. I actually did that in the Escalation video, and my Crucible of War pack had 0, and I repeat, 0 Ranger cards in it. So you got to be careful when you diversify. You got to be able to finish your 50-60 card deck. Try not to dilute your pool too much with other sets if you can't play those cards with the heroes that you're playing. Then we have a question about, will equipment be provided? So only token equipment. We're going to have all the token heroes and all the token weapons available for those heroes. And any armor that you need, you're going to have to pull it. So if you need no rune, you may go into Arcane Barrier and get no rune. Now, the chances, we'll talk about that here in a second. I'm going to go through each set and the strengths and weaknesses. But you could technically pull, 3, you can do Welcome to Wraith and then do 4 packs or 3 packs into Arcane Rising and not pull a single no rune. So think about that before you sit down to build your first deck. I would take some time and think about what set do I really want to play from and what heroes are really strong in a sealed format. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. So that's my little spiel on the Escalation League. So at this point, now that you know what it is, let's talk about each individual set, its strengths, and its weaknesses. I actually have some little notes here. Let me pull them up on my phone because I forgot to pull them up. I have a little spreadsheet, not really a spreadsheet, but a little notepad of notes I made about each set, what's good about each set, what's bad about each set. Alright, so let's get out of this little presentation here, and let's start with Welcome to Wraith. Now, a lot of people are going to not probably choose Welcome to Wraith. And the reason for it is that a lot of people have these cards already. They don't want to play heroes that they've already played. They don't want to play with cards they've already owned. But if you're a new player, or like a newer player that hasn't bought a lot of Welcome to Wraith, you might want to choose this set. Welcome to Wraith is a really well-rounded set. All the heroes in it are very straightforward as far as like what they're looking to do. They have a very clean-cut strategy, and the generics in this set are like amazing. So you're gonna have some of the strongest generics in the game playing Welcome to Wraith. I've actually considered playing Welcome to Wraith myself. It's probably on my short list. It's not it's not the top of my list of sets to pick, but because I already own a lot of this stuff and I've bought a crazy amount of this set. But you know, building Katsu for this format would probably be really fun. My luck though, I play Rhinar, so I'd probably get a crap ton of Rhinar cards, and I'd be locked into playing Rhinar again with my luck. But anyway, let's go through the classes real quick. So Brute. Brute's all about 6 damage plus attacks. You've got your Romping Club, very solid weapon. And then, of course, you have the Intimidate mechanic, which is one of the strongest mechanics in the game because your opponent cannot choose how they're going to block. So if your opponent wanted to block with that red card in their hand and you hit their blue one, well, so bad, so sad. You just can't choose what you're blocking with. So Rhinar is a really strong choice, especially in Limited. Especially in the Blitz format, he is a very strong hero, especially for the first 2 sets. And that's another advantage of this format, is you can switch heroes at any time. So in the first 2 events, you could play Rhinar, and then you could switch to something like an Aggro Katsu or a Bravo later on, based on what you pull from your packs. One thing I would do when you're analyzing the set, or picking a set to go through, is look at the commons more so than anything else. Don't look at the rares. Don't really look at the majestics. Because the chances of you pulling the rare or the majestic that you want is extremely, extremely low. Now, the rares and majestics may push you, or a legend, may push you into a certain class. Like, if I pulled Scab Skin Leathers, I would probably go into Brute, right? Right out the bat. Regardless of how good my Brute cards are, this piece being able to block 3 damage in a game is like having 3 extra life. So consider that when you're deciding what class to go into. So if you get a good piece of blocking equipment, especially from Welcome to Wraith, you may want to go into that particular set. Another common piece is the chest piece for Brute, and this is a really fun. I used this piece for a long time before I got my Spring Tunic, so this piece is definitely strong. You block with it once, and then after that you can break it for some free resources later in the game. So when you got like a 1-card hand or a 2-card hand and you don't have quite the resources, go ahead and roll, see what happens. You might get a full stack of resources and be able to do 2 or 3 things on your turn that you weren't expecting to do. Like mentioned before, I wouldn't even look at these majestics. I wouldn't even look at these rares. What I'd be looking at is the commons. So what can you do at commons from Brute? So there's some Savage Swings. If you get some red Savage Swings, those are 7s for 1. That's pretty strong. Now it does cost you a card, but that's a card that's being also intimidated from your opponent's hand. So think about it that way. They're losing a card, and you're losing a card, but you're swinging for 7. So they're going to have 3 cards to block with instead of 2. You need a lot of these 6-power attacks. So I think in determining whether you play Brute or not is going to be what quality of 6-power attacks did you pull? Did you pull a lot of Smash Instincts? Did you pull a lot of Wrecker Romps? Wrecker Romps probably one of the strongest cards in Brute because their weakest one is a 6 that's a blue. So if you can get the playset of Wrecker Romps, you're pretty set to play Brute. So that's the first class. Then you have Bravo. On-demand dominate is extremely powerful in this game, as we all know. So this is how you're going to end games, usually, is with his dominate effect. And in the early games, you may want to swing without dominate. Why? Because you want your opponent to not be able to swing back on you. So you have to remember in this format, people will not have defense reactions. There's not going to be a crazy number of defense reactions floating around. So dominate is really strong, and also throwing just a big attack that you have to block out is pretty strong as well. So Of course, if you pull his legend, you're probably gonna play him. But keep the legend and the rares out of mind when you're building your deck. You want to look at the commons and how powerful the commons are. So like Buckling Blow, 4 for 8. Break puts a -1 counter on equipment your opponent owns. So if they do have any armor, maybe they were lucky enough to get some armor, you could put a -1 counter on it. They don't get to use it. Keep that in mind. So there's a lot of strong abilities here for Bravo, for instance. He's also good at healing, so you can tank up, you can turtle up with these Stonewall Confidences. Those are commons. And then you can also heal if you pull some of these rares. Now, I said not to look at rares, but if you pull some of these rares for him, you could be healing. And healing in this format is pretty invaluable as well. Which is another like idea of why you would want to go into Welcome to Wraith. Now then you have Katsu. This is who I would try to build if I were playing in this particular sealed pool. And the reason being is I just want to play Katsu. I don't it's not because he's better than anybody else, it's just that I would want to play Katsu. So Kodachi, you could play multiple versions of this deck. You could play like a control deck where you're trying to block a lot and then you're gonna come in with Kodachis and annoy people with your 1 damage attacks every turn. If you can pull a mask, that would be amazing, but of course, don't count on it because you're only opening a total of 15 packs total. So keep that in perspective. You're not even getting like a full box. You're getting like half a box of cards to play with. So you're probably not going to pull a legend unless you're really lucky. You'll probably get a Majestic, so you might get some of these Majestics, but you're really not going to get the legends in most of your boxes that you're trying to pull from. His equipment's pretty easy to use. You just need to block with it once, and then after you block with it once and use that 1 armor on it, you can go ahead and buff a combo attack by 1 that your opponent blocked, and they just perfect blocked it. You can get that 1 over with this attack reaction. So pretty good equipment. He's got pretty good Majestics. He's got pretty decent rares. And then when you get into his commons are all about combos. So you want to try to build combos. And I think if you're going to play him, try to limit the number of different combos you have, or limit them to like the first 2 pieces in the first event you play, because it's a little bit harder to pull off like a 3-part combo if you don't have enough copies of the combo card. So like if you have a bunch of head jabs, you would probably want some open the centers, but you may not have the 3rd attack in the combo chain. So just keep that in mind. You might not have a 3rd attack to go into. Leg taps are really strong, even by themselves, just with Go Again. So you can do like a 4 with Go Again, a 3 with Go Again, a 2 with Go Again for a cost of 1. Pretty decent. You've also got your Rising Knees to go after your leg taps, and that's the 2nd attack in the chain. So you also have Surging Strikes and Whelming Gust Wave, which is a very popular one. So if this one hits, if they let this one hit, you get to draw a card. Extremely powerful effect. So if you get any Whelming Gust Waves, you probably want to run them with as many Surging Strike combos as possible. Then we get into Dorinthia. Dorinthia is the classic. This is the character I teach people how to play the game with a lot of the time, because she teaches you some of the fundamentals of the game. So she attacks. She's very weapon focused. So you just need to focus in on your Dawnblade. Nothing else really matters. So you're going to be playing probably the boots. Try to give her Go Again on this blade whenever you choose to have Go Again from a hitting attack. Then you're going to pass up all these rares. I mean, these rares are pretty good. The Majestics are really strong. But if you don't have any of those, you're going to have to look at the commons. So let's go down to her commons. Also, the Steel Blade Shunt's really good because it kills people on their turn if they attack you with a weapon. So you can deal damage to them when they attack you with a weapon, if you end up pulling some of those. Now, looking at your rares, a lot of her commons are going to be attack reactions. So she has Iron Song Response. It's a 0. Gets a buff if your opponent blocked with a card from hand. You've got your Biting Blades, which will give a buff regardless of if your opponent blocks or not. Same thing with Stroke of Foresight. Bonus whether they block or not. They got some front pumps in here for Sharpened Steel. Make the sword bigger on the front end. Driving Blade gives your weapon Go Again. And then you have, probably the weakest common is probably Nature's Path Pilgrimage, sorry. Your next weapon attack is +3 if it hits and you have no cards in Arsenal. You can take top card of your deck, put it in Arsenal. That's fine. It builds your arsenal for you. It's just not it's not a strong finishing card. It's more of a setup card for like mid game. So you don't want to see this on like the final turns of the game. But it's a decent card. It's not terrible. Now, one thing I will say about Welcome to Wraith is it does have some of the strongest generic equipment in the game. So when you're looking at this set and deciding, do I want to play Welcome to Wraith for this sealed league? This set has some, bonkers good generic equipment. And you're going to get a good number of equipment pieces from this set, because I think not every pack has a piece of equipment, but it's pretty common to get multiple pieces of equipment opening just a few packs of this set. So you're going to get things like the Merchant's Hood, which lets you cycle your bad hands back into your deck. You've also got your Hardened Cross Straps, which reduces the cost of something to play by 2. Good for pretty much anybody other than Dorinthia in this set. Same thing with Goliath Gauntlet. It's going to be good for a 2 attack, so if you get these 2 together, you can use them in tandem to make one of your attacks really big for 1 turn and cost you less. You also have Snapdragon Scalers, arguably one of the best pieces in the game of common equipment, because you can make an attack have go again that costs 1 or less. And then the big thing that people are probably overlooking, Iron Rot equipment. Now, why are people overlooking this? In the game of Flesh and Blood, you have a lot of on-hit effects. And when people attack at a 4 value at you, a lot of times that's going to require a 2-card block. Now, if you can pull Iron Rod equipment, you can just use one of your Iron Rod equipments to block that on-hit effect by doing a perfect 4. So I can block with a 3-card from hand and block with one of these Iron Rods and make it a 4. So these are invaluable, especially if you get a full set of these. This is really strong and sealed. I would say it's arguably one of the best sets of equipment to have in sealed, even though in the full constructed game, it's probably one of the worst sets to have. It is pretty strong in sealed because it just blocks. And you don't have to pay anything to do it. You can just throw the armor out there. So these are cards you don't have to be discarding from hand. This saves you up to 4 cards from hand that you don't have to block with. And then, of course, the other thing I want to say about this set before we move on to the next one is that this set also has some of the strongest generic cards in the game. Probably the strongest generic cards in the game. So when you're looking at a set to pick, don't pick it based on the rares. You can pick it based on the hero you want to play, but also you may not end up in that hero. So make sure in the set that you're looking at, there's at least 1 or 2 heroes you want to play. And then base it heavily on the number of generics and things in there that are really strong, regardless of what hero you're going to get. So, in this set, you got Drone of Brutality. It's banned for a reason. It's a rare, but it is banned for a reason. It's banned because it stops you from ever decking out, pretty much. So if you ever get in a game where it's down to the last 1 or 2 cards, you will usually win out if you have this card, because every time you block with it, it goes to the bottom of your deck. And then you can draw back into it, etc., etc. It's like an endless cycle. So if you get a few copies of Drone of Brutality, people can't beat you by deck out, pretty much. Next, you've got Snatches. Those are rares. Also, this set has all the potions. So Energy Potion, Time Snap Potion. These are all really strong cards. Even Potion of Strength is a strong card to have out. Just a +2 whenever you feel like it. It takes a turn to throw it out there, but if you blocked out that turn, right, you spent 3 of your cards blocking, you can play this out. And then end your turn. And then next turn, if you don't block at all, you can have a giant attack coming at them. Also, this set has sigils. So Sigil of Solace, which is just a straight up heal 3, heal 2, or heal 1. Healing in this format is very invaluable. It's very underrated by most people to heal. Then you have these really strong generic attacks. So like if I'm building Rhinar, I'm building Bravo. Well, really, more so Rhinar. But if you're building like Rhinar or Bravo and you have these like barraging Bronhides, they're a 3 attack. They're over 6 power for Brute, and they're over the 3 cost for Bravo. So you can give these attacks Dominate. You can do all kind of things with them. You can use them for Intimidate discards. Very strong cards. Then you've got Demolition Crew here. pretty good. Pretty good. Gets Dominate to itself, as long as you reveal another card in your hand that has a 2 or greater cost. Flock of the Featherwalker, if you want to do a multi-attack, this is like a setup for next turn. You can attack with a Flock. And the Flock's a common. You have to remember that. Flock is a common. It's not a rare. It's a common. So there's a chance you're going to pull a few of these throughout your sealed pool. Same thing with Nimble Strike. Nimble Strike is very underrated. If you're playing like Katsu, you can get Nimble Strike to work many, many times over in a game, as long as you have enough Nimbleisms to go with it. Raging Onslaught. It looks very vanilla on the front look at it. But how strong is this card against a Prism player, for example? If you're playing against Prism and you got some Onslaughts, sideboard those in, right? Those are going to pop their Phantasms on their attacks. So, a lot of strong generic cards in set 1. Scar for a Scar, very strong multi-attacking card. If you're at lower life, you get Go Again. So, consider these cards. These are all very, very powerful cards in this set. Don't sleep on Welcome to Wraith. If somebody flips over one of the original heroes, depending on what hero I'm playing, I might be worried. Because it depends on what they pulled. You also have a lot of combat tricks in this set. So you have like your Pummels and your Razor Reflexes that could come out of nowhere and pump an attack. You also have your big defense reactions, like Unmovable, which is also a common. You have your Sink Belows, which is also a good... It's pretty much... The red one's pretty much a staple in all classic constructed decks for the most part. So a lot of these staple cards come from set 1. So do not sleep on set 1 as a set when you're deciding what deck you want to play coming into this league format. Alright. So that is Welcome to Wraith. So I do have some notes here, so let me run through my notes. Of strength and some pros and cons of this set. So all the heroes in this set are easy hero abilities, so they're easy to build. There's a solid amount of generic armor choices. You also have strong counters to other heroes available, so all these heroes typically counter somebody else in the other sets. You also have a large number of generics, making it easy to swap between classes. You have access to Crucible of War, so all 3 of these heroes are in Crucible, so you're not going to miss too often when opening packs of Crucible on this set. Now, the biggest con of this set is there's no Arcane Barrier. Now, Arcane Barrier is going to be important, but I think it's only going to be important for the first 2 events. And the reason I say that is once you go to 40 life, Arcane damage does not matter as much. It's hard for a Kano player to do 40 damage with a normal Kano deck. Let alone a half-built one, right? So, Arcane damage, I would not stress over having no rune equipment if you're going into Welcome to Wraith. What I would do is focus on consistency. I would keep going into Welcome to Wraith and focus heavy on consistency. Get your deck to be as consistent as possible. And definitely play practice games when you're not in the league, when we're not doing tournament days, or even after the tournament. If you want to stay behind and play some practice games, we can definitely do that. I'll stay behind and we can play some. And during the week, try to play with your deck and manipulate it some, because you'll have time to do that during the week between leagues. So get some practice in, play your decks. I don't think you're going to be at too much of a disadvantage if you have no Arcane Barrier. It does suck when you're at the 20 life game and like you're both 1-1 and they just come in with the Arcane Barrier and you die. But that's not going to happen against everyone, because not everyone is going into this set. So think about that. Not everybody's going into those arcane heroes. For example, one of the heroes I'm considering playing is like Prism. Prism doesn't do arcane damage, except for maybe one of her cards. So like, having no Arcane Barrier, does that really matter if you went to Welcome to Wraith? Probably not. So, keep that in mind. Alright, next main set is Arcane Rising. Arcane Rising. This introduced the mechanic of arcane damage. So there's 2 heroes in here that do arcane damage. Let's run through the heroes real quick. We'll run through the cards, and then I'll talk about my pros and cons of this particular set. So, you have Dash, the Mechanologist. Her ability is very vanilla. She searches her deck for a mechanologist equipment item, sorry, and puts it in the arena at the start of the game. And then her character ability is blank after that. So if you want a hero that's pretty straightforward to play out the gate, you might want to play Dash. Now, there's multiple ways to play Dash. You can play Dash Control. You can play Dash Aggro. Just be careful when you play Dash Aggro, especially in the early events we're playing, because you will deck out if you banish too many cards from your deck. So, and you can always focus on the good old pistols. You need Plasma Pistol here. Attacking for 2. Don't sleep on it because it gets annoying when you can attack multiple times for 2. So, Dash, pretty strong hero. Very much an aggro hero, I would think, in this format, more than Control. But it depends on your pulls. So, you've got cards like Maximum Velocity. You can attack for 10. That's pretty nice. If you can pull one. She's also got... This is the card you really need to be able to attack with a pistol more than once, is the Induction Chamber. If you pull one of these, which is a super rare, not a majestic, you might want to consider playing Dash, because this is a pretty strong item to go search out at the beginning of the game. And there's only one card in the game that destroys items. And it's a brute card, and it's a majestic, or a rare. I think it's a majestic. From Crucible of War. It might be just a rare, but really hard for your opponents to pull the counter to Dash. So Dash is going to be pretty strong in limited format because she's going to put her items out and they're never going to go away. So hero you might want to consider playing if you go into Arcane Rising. And then of course all Dash's cards have boost, and with boost you basically have go again, as long as you run a deck of all Mechanologist cards. Now, you're probably going to want to put some cards in your deck that are non-Mechanologist cards. We'll talk about the generics later, but there's a few generics that'll fix the problem of accidentally banishing a non-Mechanologist card. So keep that in mind. Then we have Ranger. I play Azalea, so I'm definitely not going to play Azalea for Sealed League. Not that I don't love Azalea, but she's got her own unique playstyle that it takes a lot of patience to kind of master. But for her, Death Dealer is amazing. This basically gives you a 5-card hand every turn. Most people don't think about it that way, but it really does. As long as you have an arrow to reload, you have a 5-card hand. So, lots of good Ranger cards in here. These bracers are really invaluable when you have a hand full of arrows and you need to get rid of them. This will let you shoot more than one arrow in a turn. Take cover is really strong, but of course, don't look at the rares, because the rares are not going to be what you pull. You're not going to get the rares that you want, let me put it that way. You're not going to get the rares that you want. You're going to get some rares, but some of them may not even be playable in the hero you're choosing to play. So we're looking at the commons. We got Headshot, pretty strong arrow, shoots for 6. You can give it Dominate. You've also got all these annoying hit effects. So that's what Ranger's about. It's about annoying hit effects that your opponent can't block, or they have to sacrifice all their armor to block. So we've got Hamstring Shot. We've got Ridge Rider Shot. We've got Salvage Shot, which goes to the bottom of your deck so you don't run out of arrows. You've got Searing Shot, which is a 0 that if it hits, it's going to deal an extra damage. You've got Sikkim Shot, which is your go again arrow. So if you want to do some go wide strategies with Azalea, get as many Sikkim Shots in your deck as possible, and then run some of these other arrows that cost maybe 0, and play some reload. You need a lot of reload if you're going to do multi-shot arrow game, but it can be done. You just need to pull the right commons. Then we get into our wonderful arcane damage or damage dealing heroes. So you have Viserai. Viserai is probably easier to build than Kano, because he's going to build up rune chants, and you can decide when to attack with all those rune chants. And if your opponent has no rune, then they're probably going to die from the massive amount of arcane damage you're going to do. So Viserai, you can build him as a control deck. You can build him as a mid-range deck. I prefer him as a mid-range deck, where, especially in the 20 life format, I'm attacking you for like 15 or 20. Every turn, or 12, between 12 and 15 on every turn when you add in my rune chants. So either I'm attacking you for like 9 physical and 4 or 5 rune chants every turn that I attack you, And then the rest of the turns, I'm kind of just blocking and playing like a non-combat card to set up. So, Viserai, very strong hero. Most people play him as an OTK deck, which, I mean, that's fine. I'm not a big OTK fan. I would play him more as a mid-range hero, honestly, where you're going to build up a couple of rune chants, use them to reduce the cost of your big attacks, and then swing those big attacks at your opponent. So, lots of good equipment here. You've got lots of good rares, but we're going to skip over the rares, because like I said, you don't really care about the rares. You want to look at the commons. So let's look at Amplify the Arcanite. A 6 typically for 0. I mean, this is one of the sealed cards that I beat a lot of people with, because it's a 6 for 0 in most instances. So when we did draft, I played Viserai, and I picked all the good Viserai cards because nobody else wanted to play them in my draft pool. So I had all the good Viserai cards. So I had like 2 or 3 of these red Amplify the Arcanites. I had 2 or 3 of these Oath of the Arcanites. And I just went to town on people swinging for 9 and 12 physical damage with 6 or 7 rune chants behind it. And I was not playing an OTK deck. I was just playing a mid-range strategy. So block out, build up your rune chants, and then once you get enough rune chants, go ham on people. There's a few go again, like Rune Flash is a go again attack. There's a few attacks like this that are kind of, mediocre, but it makes you a rune chant, so you're not losing all your rune chants when you attack. Bloodspill Invocation scares the death out of people, especially the red one, because it can make 3 rune chants if the next attack hits. And if you take damage, you do lose it, but you could block out, so you could sit there blocking out multiple turns. Especially in sealed, because remember, people aren't going to be hitting you with crazy numbers in sealed. I think, they're still going to swing at you for like 12s and 10s and things like that. But it's very rare somebody's going to come at you with like an unblockable attack that's a 12 or, more. So, pretty safe to play Viserai in this format. And a lot of people won't have the Arcane Barrier, right? So they won't be able to block it. All your Arcane Rune chants. So you are putting your opponent kind of on a clock. So when you play against, or when you sit down in front of a Viserai player or somebody playing arcane damage, you are on a clock to kill them before they kill you. Now, it is going to be easier to kill somebody at the 20 life count, but when you get to 40 life, it's going to be harder for Viserai to win because he has to build up more rune chants, right? He has to do more to you to be able to kill you. So I think your strategy changes a little bit once you get to Classic Constructed. And then we have Wizard, Kano, one of everybody's favorite limited heroes out there. 15 life goes to 30 life, but all this damage is basically unblockable damage, so you'll be able to do what you want as a Kano player to your opponent in most cases. And, once you're doing your Kano things, is it enough? We don't know if it's going to be enough to kill them, but you're trying to do as much as you can before they kill you. So it's really a race against time. Arcane damage not blockable unless you have no rune equipment. This is also another set that has really strong generic equipment. So you've got your Arcanite Skullcap, which is the legend, so you of course not going to plan to pull that. But you will get like your Talismanic Lens here. That's good for opting. All these heroes in this set care about the top card of their deck. In pretty much every scenario other than Viserai. So if you want a certain card on top of your deck, you'll put this in your deck as the headpiece, and you can customize that. You've also got the Vest of the First Fist, so when an attack action you control hits, you can make 2 resources. That's pretty good for any of the heroes in this set. Bracers of Belief, since you are opting and looking at the top of your deck a lot, you can make this happen, where you're going to reveal a card that's a 1 pitch and add +2 to any attack that you want. Doesn't matter what the cost of the attack is. You also have your Mage Master Boots, which is good for non-attack actions. There's a few non-attack actions in this set that heal you and things like that you could give go again to if you play Mage Master Boots first. And then, of course, the biggest value in this set is going to be this Null Rune. So if you go into Arcane Rising, you're probably not worried about other heroes that have magic damage, because you're going to be able to block it out. Now, scrolling through here, there's some rares, there's some majestics. I'm going to skip over all that junk. Skip over the rares. Now, this back alley break line is really good for any hero in this set, other than maybe like Viserai. But when an activated ability or an action card effect puts back alley break line face up into a zone from your deck, gain 1 action point. So for like dash, you can put some of these in your dash deck, and this doesn't end your turn whenever you boost into it. It doesn't give you go again, but it gives you a refund your action point. It's also a 1 for 5. It's one of the weaker cards in the game, but it's also built for, I think, limited format, right? So this is a limited format card that's going to help you out a lot. Also, if you blind Azalea this off the top of your deck, your turn doesn't just end. You actually get an action point from this. So this is actually really strong with Azalea because you can use Azalea's ability, which has go again, put a back alley break line into your arsenal, gain a free action point, and then keep going. So you could attack with the back alley break line and then load an arrow in your arsenal and shoot that at them too. So you can do a double attack turn with back alley break line. So a lot of people sleep on this card. Somebody did like a whole video or a whole article on how this is like the worst card in the game, and it's really not. Some people, it's worse for it's bad for classic constructed. I would agree there, but for like limited formats like this, it's a pretty damn good card. Pretty good card. So you've also got some like recursion cards here. Now, one thing that is a weakness of this set is notice all these cards are blocking for 2. So you're not going to be able to block very well or very consistent with a lot of these cards. You do make up for it a little bit with like your Fate for Scenes, which is kind of like Sink Below, but you get to opt instead of fixing your hand. So Fate for Scene is the block 4 in this set, but a lot of these are going to be low block cards. You're not going to be blocking for 3s all that often when you're playing this set. So even though you're resistant to other arcane decks, you're going to be weak to physical damage decks, right? So when you have like your Bravo swinging at you for 10, the most you're going to be able to put in front of it's like a 3, right? Or a 4 if you have a red Fate for Scene at that exact moment. You're not really going to be able to block very efficient against physical attacks. So I think that's where the balance comes in. So like, if you go Welcome to Wraith, do not worry about Arcane Barrier because the Arcane heroes are not going to be able to block you out when you're attacking them back. So keep that in mind. Very interesting fact to think about when you're choosing a sealed set. Next, I'm going to go through the pros and cons of this set. So pros, the heroes in this set all deal consistent, or most of them deal consistent arcane damage, aka Kano and Viserai. You have access to no runes, so you can counter other arcane decks. You also have solid staple generics that help you manipulate the top of your deck and apply go again to your other attacks. So you have things like Lead the Charge that can give you go again when you normally wouldn't have go again, an extra action point. You also have all these opt cards, so like Fate for Scene, Foresight. You can play it from Arsenal, get to opt 2, so you can manipulate the top of your deck a good bit using this set. So this set lets you kind of play more of a, I don't want to say a control deck, but you can control your draws a little bit better playing this set. There's now some of the you do have access to Crucible support because Crucible of War supported this set specifically alongside Welcome. And let's go into the cons. So there's little to no physical defense. Like I mentioned, a lot of these cards block for 2. Here's a few 3s. But you're really not going to have any big defense cards coming out of this set other than a 4. Like 4 is the biggest you're going to block for. You're going to have little to no physical defense. The skill cap of the heroes is a little bit higher. So if you're a newer player and you're still figuring out the rules of the game, I wouldn't necessarily go with this set just because, unless you want to play Dash. I wouldn't necessarily go with this set and pick somebody overcomplicated like Kano, who's kind of hard to play. I wouldn't choose him as my starting hero if I were a brand new player because there's a lot to learn there, and it's going to be hard to learn it on the fly in a sealed format. So you need to know the heroes a good bit before choosing this set. Alright, so that is Arcane Rising. We've got 2 left. We're going to look at Monarch and Tails. So, Monarch. Alright, so Monarch. one of the newer sets, and we're about to get to the newest set, of course, which is going to be Tales of Aria, which, as of me recording this, comes out tomorrow. But some of you may already have some cards from that set playing in the pre-releases. So let's take a look at Monarch. So Monarch is the light and dark heroes. And we have Illusionist, who's locked into this set. She really can't play many cards other than generics from other sets. So she's going to have to stay in this set as much as possible if you want to play Illusionist. But she is also one of the strongest characters in Limited. So if you choose to go Monarch, and you want to go Illusionist, you're probably staying in this set, because she has a little bit of protection against everything. She has Spectral Shields, which will block arcane damage for you. She has Spectral Shields that block physical damage for you. So you can kind of see a theme here. She is kind of well-rounded in that she can block any type of damage that's coming at her. She also swings with some pretty decent-sized attacks, so she's going to be attacking for 6s and 7s and have a very low cost of 2 and 1. She also has auras that can do annoying effects, especially if they can pull, or if you can pull like a Merciful Retribution rare. That's really annoying. All these commons are like, all have like a 7 version of them. So this Herald of Protection got a 7. And these big attacks, if they hit, they typically go into Soul and help fuel her future turns. So your opponent's really going to need to activate Phantasm to shut these down, in many cases. Ooh, sorry about that. So you're going to be looking to activate Phantasm if you're sitting across from a Prism player. And if you didn't notice, Arcane Rising doesn't have a ton of 6-powered attacks. Really doesn't. What does have a lot of 6-powered attacks, though, is Welcome to Wraith. So who would counter Prism very well? All the characters from Welcome to Wraith could counter Prism very well, because they could put in all those 6 generic attacks and pop all your Phantasms. So be wary of playing Prism in that people do know how to counter it. You just play 6 attacks, and you can stop your turn. They can stop your turn in its tracks, and you can be very frustrated. Next, you also have Bolton. Bolton's pretty strong if you can get his weapon for sure, but Bolton's pretty strong overall. He has the ability, as long as you're charging, you can give your things go again. As long as you have cards in the soul, you can give your attacks go again. So as long as your attacks have more, have a higher base than their original attack, so if they have some kind of modifier on them, then you can give your attacks go again. So keep that in mind. He's pretty strong, especially if you can pull a Lumina, but once again, we're not looking at rares, you only want to really look at the commons. So a lot of his commons are setting up the charges. So to play Bolton, you're probably going to need a good number of common take flights. And then you're going to need a good number of his rares probably to play him very well, to be honest. Because he focuses kind of heavy on his rares, a little bit more than like Prism would. Next we have the generic light cards. So this is the Legend Head, the Common Headpiece. So depending on what armor you get, you might choose to go light or dark in this set. Some of the Majestics, Celestial Cataclysm, one of the best cards in the game, a 0 for 7. But you have to have 3 cards in your soul. So you gotta set up that soul first before you can go. You do have a few vanilla 6 attacks in here, which will help against other Prism players. You have Glisten. Now in Sealed, Glisten and your Prism hero are very busted together, because you can turn your aura into a multiple point attacking card for like 3. So Iris of Reality is the basic weapon for Prism that you're probably going to have. You're not going to have Luminaris in most cases. So that weapon, you pay 3, and your aura, so like your Spectral Shield, becomes a 4 attack. But if you play Glisten first, you can put +1/+1 counters on that aura, and then the aura can attack for like 7 at a cost of 3. And if you have more than one Glisten in your deck, you can make that bigger and bigger and bigger. As long as you block and protect the aura from getting destroyed, you're able to make that one aura attack for a crazy amount. So keep that in mind for Limited. These glistens are kind of invaluable. They are rares, which is a little pain in the butt to get, but they are very strong. And then you have some good, like Impenetrable Belief is very good for blocking out shadow decks. So if you play against somebody that's also going into Monarch, and they're playing a shadow hero, sideboard these in because this is a block 5 or a block 4. It's usually a block 4. Yeah, a block 4 against a like a Chain player or a Levia player. Next, we get into some more light stuff. This is all generic light buffs and whatnot. So this helps fill in your light deck to help you give you your 30 cards. Next, we got some illusionist specific cards. So this is the Iris of Reality I was talking about. It turns your aura into a 4 attack weapon with Go Again for a cost of 3. So pretty good. Pretty good stuff. Lots of rares here, and then we get into some commons. So her commons are all big generic attacks that's going to come in for like 8s and 7s and things like that. Hard numbers to block with more than, you got to block with more than one card in your hand. Then we have the generic weapon, warrior cards. So if you play Bolton, you're most likely to end up with these axes for your first weapon. So make sure, if you're going to play Bolton, that you can get Gallantry Gold, because this makes your... This basically makes your, you can have like a 7 attack turn for a blue pitch, which is pretty strong in this format. Because you would break Gallantry Gold, you would swing with the hatchet, because it has higher base attack than its printed base attack, you could give it Go Again, banishing a card from Bolton's Soul, and then you can swing with the hatchet, and then if you have more soul, you can give this Go Again because it's going to be higher than its base attack, and you can still play another attack after that. So, pretty good combos you can come up with Warrior for limited if you play Bolton. Next is Levia. She is one of the strongest Blitz heroes in the game. I know a lot of people probably don't even know that because you haven't played Blitz before, but she is one of the strongest Blitz heroes that you could play. So when you're in a 20 life format, she is one of the strongest heroes. And why is that? All she does is throw out raw damage. Like everything is just a 6. It's a minimum of a 6, and it could be bigger, depending on the cards you play. So everything she's attacking you with is going to be a 6 or bigger, sometimes with Dominate. These attacks are huge. And she can also attack with a 6 for 1. Now, she does have to set up her discard pile, which is fine. It's not hard to do. You just have to block some attacks. Block 1 or 2 attacks, and then your discard pile is pretty much set up. But she has some really hard-hitting attacks. She has some really easy-to-get Go-Again cards, such as this common Dread Screamer is really strong. This card is busted. It's a 1 for 7 that only requires that you banish the card this turn that has 6 or more power. You can kind of see the theme. She's a brute, so she wants 6 or more power cards. But, like, man, she is really strong in limited format because she's going to be attacking for big numbers that your opponent has to block. She's also a good counter to Prism, which is also a really strong deck in that format because she has all these 6 and 7 attacks that can pop Phantasm and just end the Prism player's turn. So keep that in mind. Levia, don't sleep on her just because you think she's not good in Classic Constructed doesn't mean she's not good in limited format because she is actually a really strong damage dealer in a limited format. And then we have Chain. I think everybody, other than like the newest of new players, are going to know Chain already. So I don't know if I have to explain a ton about Chain, but Chain does make Soul Shackles, which lets him have a bigger hand size because he can play cards from his Banish Zone. So for Chain, you need to get a lot of cards that are playable from Banish Zone. So you're going to want like, let's skip over all these rares that you're not going to be able to pull. Like Bounding Demi Gun, as long as you played a non-attack action, you can play this from your Banish Zone, and you get +1 attack. Now, it does have Blood Debt, so if you can't get it out of your Banish Zone and your turn ends, you're going to lose life. So remember that. It's like a double-edged sword. But no cards in this format are banned, so even though Seeds is banned, you can still run it in this format. So if you want to play Seeds of Agony, before it gets, before it's banned as of tomorrow, you can play it in the sealed format. That is totally fine. You can play it in sealed. So you can build you a chain deck for one last time if you really want to. It may or may not win you the event. I think there's stronger heroes, but especially in a limited format. But if you want to play them one last time, go for it. You also got Carrion Husk if you're lucky enough to pull a legend, but I wouldn't count on the legends in this set to be pullable. You'll probably have Ebonfold. In most cases, if you're going with a Shadow hero, you're probably going to play the Ebonfold. This is good for both of them. It's really good for Levia to fix your hands on turns where you would die from Blood Debt. You can just banish a card from your hand, and then that pays your Blood Debt, and then you don't die from Blood Debt. So, pretty good card. For Chain, it just sets up more discard pile. It also has Void, Spell Void on it. So this set does give you a little bit of spell defense, even though you wouldn't normally have any with some of the Spell Void equipment. And then you have the generic Shadow cards, all pretty straightforward. If you're playing Shadow, you're probably playing most of your Shadow generics. And then at the very bottom, we got some Brute generics. And these Brute generics are pretty strong for the most part. And then you have your Rune Blade generic. So if you get this chess piece is really good. Chess piece is really good for Chain because it makes 2 resources once you have played an attack and a non-attack action in the same turn. And then this set has some pretty decent generic equipment in general. This chess piece makes a resource whenever you've dealt damage. So if you have go again attacks, which most of these heroes do, you will get to make a resource to help you pay for your next attack. You've got Stubby Hammers, which if you're playing somebody like Chain, who has a lot of low base attack attacks, you can get +1 to all your attacks for the turn. Then you've got Time Skippers, which is a good get 2 action points card by paying 3. So if you need to get around like the Prism's Spectrum or Spectras, when you attack them, it usually ends your turn. But if you have 2 action points, you keep going if you have another action point. And then you do have Iron Rot Helmet, so you have a little bit of physical defense in this set. It just costs you a resource, so you have to pay for this 2 block, but at least it's a 2 block and not a 1 block. So you got a little bit of physical defense. So this set's you're not totally defenseless against arcane damage. You have a little bit of defenses against arcane. You have a few defensive reactions that have a little bit of a cost to them. And you do have some ways to give your attacks go again, such as like Captain's Call and things like that. There are a few, and then like one of the most busted combos in the game is Belittle Minnowisms. So if you have like a blue Minnowism to go get, you can just keep cycling it back with these Belittles. So if you pull some Belittles, you can always have 3 resources whenever you want it. So don't sleep on that combo for this set. So, and there's also some like generic good blocking cards, like Rally the Rear Guard lets you block for 5 when you have a hand of cards that can't block. So you can discard a card you can't block with to block for an additional 3. So pretty good stuff in this set. Pretty decent generics. And then you do have some Spell Void equipment. Even though these Talisman are really weird, you might want to run them against an arcane damage dealing deck so you can block some arcane damage so you don't die. Alright, so that is Monarch. Lots of strong heroes there. Semi-pros for Monarch is all the heroes are strong in this set. None of them are really weak. Provide some resistance to both damage types with Spell Void and Battle Worn. The talents of this set will allow you to have a larger card pool. So like Chain can use regular Rune Blade things if you want to go into Arcane Rising. And Crucible. And same thing with Levia and your Warrior, Bolton. They can all go into like Welcome to Wraith and other sets to get a few cards if they want to. Now, your cons of this set, these heroes are very combo oriented. So you need to do a lot of setup in their combos to set them up. Like Levia does crazy damage, but she has to set it up. It has to be like a combo turn. So these heroes are very combo oriented, other than maybe like Illusionist. Illusionist also in this set has no outside support. So if you want to play Prism, you're pretty locked into this set every time you're buying packs because you want more Illusionist cards to make your deck more consistent. There's also less support in this set for these classes in Crucible because Illusionist is not included in Crucible. But you could get Crucible of War packs to play like Levia or Chain if you really wanted to. Alright, let's go over the little last set that we have, which is the newest set, Tales of Aria. And Tales of Aria has some pretty good heroes that we're adding. They're only adding 3. So you got Oldhim, another Guardian. Now, one thing I will say about Tales of Aria, I'm having the shop put 2 boxes aside, so only 4 people are going to be able to play Tales of Aria. So if you want to play Tales of Aria, you need to be first on the sign-up list, and you need to put next to your name Tales of Aria so that I know which set you want to play. So once those 4 slots are gone, nobody else can play Tales of Aria. Now, speaking of Tales of Aria, you're pretty much pigeonholed into playing Tales of Aria for the entire league, except for like 3 packs of your 15. Because, and this is why, because these heroes need elemental cards to function. And elemental cards are only found in this set. Like Oldhim, he needs an earth card or ice card for his defensive reaction. Otherwise, his hero card is blank, and why are you even playing Oldhim at that point? So to make these decks consistent, you need to stay within this set. So there will be like 3 packs that you can diversify into other sets. But really, you want to stay in this set as long as you can. I'm going to put 2 boxes aside, so that means you could have a total of 12 packs from this set. So keep that in mind. You'll have a total of 12 packs. So you'll have your initial 6, and the first 2 events after, you can get 3 and 3 of Aria, and then after that, you're kind of out of luck because we're not going to have any. We may not have stock for you to buy into more packs of this set. So if we don't have the stock for it, you won't be able to play it. But you do need to go as far into this set as possible for consistency's sake. Now, we do have, of course, all the, Guardian cards. So we all know Guardian already. They're very tanky. They swing for big numbers. So it's a tank that's going to swing back really hard whenever they can swing back. Then you have Lexi. She's a ranger. She's a little bit easier to play than Azalea. So she's a little bit easier to control and manipulate the cards with her abilities. So I wouldn't say she's better than Azalea. I think they're equal. Just she's easier. The flow of figuring out how she works is very easy and simple to mathematically figure out. So Shiver is an awesome weapon, just gives you on-demand dominate, and on-demand dominate just wins games. So if you can get your opponent in that kill range, you can just kill them with a dominated attack. We've got all these Majestics, which you're probably not going to pull. But some of her strongest cards are these arrows that are 5s for 1. So 5 for 1 dominated, nothing to laugh at because most people can only block for 3, right? So you're going to bleed damage. There's going to be a lot of bleed damage playing against Lexi. And Lexi's arrows, these fused ones, especially like Chilling Ice Vein, this is very painful because when it hits, you have to pay 1 or lose a card. So it's as if, I blocked with a card from hand to block this dominate. It wasn't enough to completely block it, and then I have to lose another card on top of that. So I'm losing 2 cards, even though I should have only lost 1 being hit with this dominated attack. So Chilling Ice Vein, don't sleep on it. It's a very annoying arrow that if it's fused, it's going to knock your hand down a good bit. And then if it's not fused, or even if they fuse it and don't dominate it, they can make it bigger so that you have to drop multiple cards to block it, or you're just going to lose a card anyway. So a lot of her effects are very, very much in the vein of Ranger, where they're annoying effects that you don't want to hit. And then you have Briar. She has a consistent, arcane damage pool that she can build and deal arcane damage very consistently to other players. So if you don't have your arcane barrier, she can whittle you down with her arcane damage, especially her sword. Her sword just lets her deal 2 arcane damage, and that's at any time she plays a non-attack action card first. So Briar, pretty decent sealed or limited character. But once again, this character is going to get weaker when we get to 40 life, because doing 2 arcane damage is like okay, that's fine. In your sealed pool, when you play the very first round, being able to do like 14 arcane damage across your cards is going to pretty much kill your opponent, right? Because they only have a 20 life health span. But when we get to 40 life, that card pool of arcane damage needs to be higher. Otherwise, some of these attacks really have to hit and not get blocked out. So, good arcane damage for Briar. You can try to do some interesting things with her. And then we have the elemental cards, which work kind of like with dual elements or single elements to help round out their deck a little bit. So this is like the generics, basically, for this set. So Tales of Aria, strong set. If you're going to pick it, you do have to stay in this set to really make your deck work the whole time. So you want to stay in this set as long as you can. And then one thing that is a little bit weaker in this set, though, and that's something to consider, is that your equipment is weaker in this set. So a lot of the equipment in this set does not have a block value. It's mostly for like generic effects. And those generic effects may not be enough to help you win games against somebody that has armor that blocks, for example. So you have the Frost Cloak here, pretty decent. You have some lightning equipment if you're playing one of the lightning heroes. And, you know, there's lots of choices here. Lots of choices to be made based on your pool. So, do consider this set. I do think it's a strong set to pick as well. I'll actually play this set if we don't have enough people buying into the Tales of Aria sealed. But if enough people are 4 people are playing it, then I'm not going to worry about it. I'll play a different set. But this set is pretty strong. It's going to be first edition, so that's some collector's value there if you want to try to open packs. And all these heroes are very strong in their own way. And also things like Duskblade are not banned in this format. So remember that if you pull one, you can use it. And that's going to be a big boost for you when we get to like Classic Constructed, for example. And the Rosetta Thorn is really strong with the 2 arcane damage every turn. So, lots of options for this set. The generic equipment, not as strong as other sets, but it is playable, at least. So keep that in mind. Alright, Tales of Aria. All 3 heroes. You pretty much want to stay within your talents, and you don't really want to venture out to other sets all that much. So that's one of the... It's one of the good things and the bad things about the set, right? So all the heroes want to stay within their talents, and it doesn't require generic cards from the other sets. All heroes are strong against the existing characters in the format, so all these are really strong as long as you can get your consistency of your deck right. And then the cons of this set is there's no arcane barrier. You're locked into this set most of the event. One thing about this particular event is that the price to play this set is going to be higher because it is first edition pack, so you're probably looking at more of a, instead of a $30 entry fee, it's more like a $50 entry fee on the front end. And then there's only going to be a limited number of slots for this set. So be one of the first 4 to sign up, and you can play Tales of Aria. And I think you'll do just as well as somebody who chose a different set to play from. Alright, so that's my little spiel on all the sets that you can choose from to start in. I didn't talk about Crucible of War, but Crucible of War is more of like a end of league. You want to get a few cards from Crucible to finish off your deck. You can try to pull them in the last 3 packs. I would mostly stay in my lane or in my set, within my set, up until the very end, if you can. Or, you know, if you feel that your decks, because your decks will get more and more consistent the more packs you open from the same set. So keep that in mind. Alright, so I'm going to end this video here. If you have any further questions about Escalation League, I know this video went a little long, but I wanted to go through and talk for new players what sets to think about and what to think about when you're looking at each set, and whether you should play it or not. So hopefully see you on October 2nd when we start. Make sure to sign up early if you want to play Tales of Aria. And then if you want to play another set or want some more advice about playing a set, feel free to message me and we can talk about it. Strategy, we can talk strategy. But what you pull is what you're going to play with. So hopefully we'll have some fun. See you then.